Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca. Similar to Ed, I'm also an MBA student at Wharton and doing my master's in international studies through the Lauder Institute. So today I want to talk about US startups that are focused on serving immigrants. So just to provide a bit of context, America is built on immigration. Almost everyone's family came through immigration, whether it's centuries ago or more recently. So my parents immigrated from Taiwan to the US in the 1980s to pursue their PhDs. And the immigrant population has been growing and is contributing a lot to the US economy. In 2020, there were 44 million immigrants in the US, making up 14% of the US population. And immigrants and their descendants are projected to account for 88% of the US population growth through 2065. And unfortunately, there have also been different refugee or immigrant crises in the past few years in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and other parts that also account for this drive in immigrants. But as I mentioned, immigrants have contributed a lot to the US. Immigrants have contributed to the GDP, they're startup founders, Fortune 500 founders and CEOs, as well as Nobel Prize winners. But despite all of these great contributions and this growing population, there's still a lot of barriers to immigrating to the US and once you settle here. You're giving up maybe a stable life in a different country to come to a new country where you might not speak the language very well, you might not have a lot of family and friends, a lot of your job credentials might not transfer over. There's just a lot of different obstacles. And so I want to better understand the landscape of what US startups are doing to help serve some of these immigrants. I wanted to be really specific about what kind of companies that I was interested in looking at, and so I'm specifically looking at US companies helping immigrants in the US, specifically tech startups. And so there's a lot of other great companies that are related to immigrants or minorities, such as a lot of food companies, companies serving minorities, companies that are employing refugees, or nonprofits. But for this purpose, I want to be quite tailored. And so through a lot of research online and talking to others, I looked at 41 startups across 4 different fields that are working with immigrants, across fields such as digital health, ed tech, fintech, and legal tech. And I'll go into more detail about some of these companies to help everyone get a better understanding for what each of these different companies might do or what it looks like in each of these sectors. But I think at a glance, some of the trends are pretty clear. You can see there's a lot of fintech companies and not as many digital health or ed tech companies, for instance. So a lot of the companies that I looked at are quite early stage. So again, I'm looking at venture capital-backed companies. So companies that are raising seed funding are going to be earlier, and there's more of these, and there's less companies that are more mature. As mentioned, there's a lot more fintech companies and fewer digital health or edtech companies. So there's a lot of room for growth in these 2 fields. And most of these companies are also serving one specific industry, with the exception of one company. And to be clear, I'm not working for any of these companies right now, so I'm not sponsoring anything necessarily. And lastly, I look to see whether companies are serving specific diasporas, whether it's from Africa, Asia, Latin America. And most companies are not serving specific diasporas, but the ones that do are mainly fintech companies. Also to note is that none of the companies are serving immigrants from specific parts of the world, such as Europe or the Middle East. And so I want to walk through examples of different companies for each of these sections just to help people better understand what some of the obstacles might be. So for instance, looking at digital health companies, if you're coming to America from a different country and you don't speak the language as well, I think advocating for yourself and speaking to different doctors or healthcare providers can be a little bit more challenging. And so some of these companies are helping to connect immigrants with payers, providers that are more suited for their needs. Additionally, I know I mentioned English language learning early on. There are companies that will work with other companies to help their users learn English terms or expressions that are specific to the workplace environment, as well as companies that work on workforce development and provide different training videos for immigrants to build different vocational skills as they come to a new country. In terms of fintech, so a lot of times when immigrants come over to the US, their credit scores don't come with them, and so this makes it difficult to procure different financial resources. So companies such as Welcome Tech helps immigrants provide resources such as bank accounts, debit card, rewards offerings. And similarly, Nova Credit is helping a lot of immigrants build up their credit scores in the US. And then lastly, I also want to look at legal tech companies. So as a lot of people know, the path to citizenship in the US just has a lot of different barriers and takes a lot of time. And so some of these companies are working with other corporations or individuals. So Bridge, for instance, helps larger employers manage their immigrant population and helps them onboard different people, as well as fill out different forms as immigrants are getting their visas. And then companies such as Boundless are working with immigrants to connect them to lawyers or other personalized support that will help them in their immigration journey as they become citizens in the US. And so I think, as noted in these slides, it's clear that there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity in working with immigrants. And so even though immigrant populations, there's a lot of refugee crises or immigrants trying to come over, immigrant populations have also drawn a lot of vitriol and hate in the past few years, and there's been different presidential administration actions to curtail immigrants. But as we saw, immigration is really important for America, and immigration really drives a lot of economic growth and innovation, whether it's contributing to the GDP or contributing in the Nobel Prize or in other ways as leading startups or being Fortune 500 CEOs. Despite all of the barriers that immigrants have been facing in America, despite all of the challenges that they face, immigrants have still managed to persevere and succeed and really drive this economic growth in the US. And so after my research, I only found 41 startups, which shows that, and this is across the different fields that we saw of digital health and fintech, legal tech, and ed tech. And so we see that there is a lot of room and growth and opportunity to serve immigrants and some of these more specific barriers that they face coming to this country that we might not be thinking about if you're not exposed to this. And so overall, I want this to help people think about, well, I want this to be twofold. So one, I want people to better understand these different companies that are helping work with immigrants, but I also would love for people to think about the different challenges that immigrants are facing and how us in all of our different roles can help immigrants or just people coming to this country. For as business leaders, thinking to how we can adjust our business models to be more inclusive of different populations. A lot of nonprofits might have challenges working with the private sector sometimes, so maybe there's collaborations or partnerships here. Investors can also think about investing or partnering with companies or also helping challenge their founders to make their business models more inclusive. And then for everyone, I think just being more empathetic and kind and thinking about the different challenges that people might face that we might not be aware of. So thank you.